Welcome to Raising the Bar, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the country's most successful leaders and how they elevate their business and their teams. Please welcome our host, Alison DePauli.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Raising the Bar with Alison DePauli. It is my pleasure to have my friend Andrew Cass, the CEO of Pipeline Pro, on the show today. You know, I'm not a big one for biographies. We'll post Andrew's incredible biography in the show notes, but he is on the show today for one very specific reason. He and his team have over $1 billion in sales under their belts and are sticklers for follow-up. So welcome to the show. Thank you.
Great to be here, Allison. Thanks for having me on. Excited to share some goodies with the audience.
I knew you would be. So let's talk about your pet peeve. You do not like poor post-sale follow-up. Why don't we talk about how important that is to sustaining your business?
Sure. So what Allison mentioned before is my partner, Aaron, and I, who run Pipeline Pro, our teams, we're approaching $1 billion in total revenue generated of all of our companies over the last 15 years, clients we've worked with, projects we've worked with. Just to clarify that piece, and we recently formulated our own sales and marketing CRM called Pipeline Pro because we saw the weakness in the marketplace of poor follow-up. And poor follow-up is usually the result of laziness in the business. And follow-up is the lost art, I like to say, with all these tools that we have today, Allison, more than ever before, by the way. Yep. I see the least amount of strategic follow-up than I've ever seen in my last 20 years doing this. Yet we have more tools than we've ever had in history, right? You would think it would be the opposite. You would think today people would be so thorough and so dialed in and so strategic with their follow-up and their systems and their software and their automation. And it's like, I almost think it's an example, Allison, of there's too much out there. Yes. So when there's a lot of choices, it's almost like you get almost like a deer in headlights moment where you implement nothing, right?
Correct.
And I think that's what I see more than anything when I work with business owners and CEOs. And we see so many of them come into our platform, Pipeline Pro, because we've managed to get everything in one single ecosystem where we can have your sales funnels and your websites and your calendars and your sales tracking and your chat widgets and your back-end campaigns, email, text, voice, broadcast. And we've done all that so that somebody doesn't feel like they need to be that deer in headlight, and they can have it all in one place and actually execute. And a lot of times when there's so much tech talking to each other, I feel like business owners, they can't execute or they can't get their team to execute because they're always just trying to fix things, right? So my pet peeve is twofold. It's I don't see it, but I also think a lot of it is because we're over-teched and we're over-tooled and we're over-subscriptioned and we just freeze.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. As somebody who is a user of yours, in full disclosure,
yes, you are.
I was over-tooled and over-tacked. And
we just came up with this term over-tooled today, by the way, and I really like it.
I think it's fabulous. And it's true. I mean, we cut our number of subscriptions way down and we are way more efficient and we get better results because we know when to talk to people. And I think that's the other thing is knowing when to talk to people is really important and can be really hard.
Right. Good point. Yeah. Segmentation, we could call it, right? Prospect A does this. They might get a different form of communication. Prospect B does this. They might go into a different bucket or a campaign, right? That shows even more thoughtfulness to the follow-up, which I think is also a missing link, is where is the thoughtful, caring follow-up? And I don't mean to sound like a Hallmark card. I mean it more along the lines of think about how you want the customer. I guess we're talking post-customer here. I'm thinking, right? Maybe I'm wrong, right? But you acquire or a lead coming into a lead or a prospect that's not a customer. That follow-up is obviously just as important because you want to get them to the finish line. But there's so little of it today. And here's the thing that gets me the most. You said pet peeve. Biggest pet peeve for me is when a business only uses email. I feel that's lazy. Anybody can use email. It's free, it's quick, it's dirty, it's cheap. And frankly, today, it's actually the least looked at form of follow-up that there is if you take what I call the trifecta into effect, which is email, phone, and text. Believe it or not, email is like, it just gets bundled in with 300 a day. It gets looked at for sure, but it gets skimmed and scanned more so than paid attention to. So I like the multimedia portfolio approach to follow up. There's some phone in there. There's direct mail in there. In some cases, you were a former client of mine, and you and I talked a great deal about direct mail to some companies that you wanted to get in front of that might never see an email or a text or take a phone call, right? So
and it worked.
And it worked. So there's so much you need to think about and invest in if you want to follow up in a way that makes impact to get you noticed, which is tough to do today, tough to get noticed and stay noticed today. So this becomes a really important piece of the puzzle to not only get noticed, but stay in front of someone and get someone to remember you.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think at least in my industry, which is a little bit different than an e-commerce or
you're
or
B2B.
Right. So we're B2B. So we work awfully hard on knowing when to touch people because they don't always want to talk to us. But sometimes they really need to, and we need to have the time to talk with them and sort out what they need. So we need to be as efficient as possible, but I don't think we're all that unique in that way. Mm-hmm. I think that's everybody. And we also need to be able to get people, and we do much better with texting than we do with email. Or email to me is like percolation.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a piece of a puzzle, right? It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the puzzle.
Yes. I know you have some very interesting stories about restaurants and email and text follow-up. Would you care to share one or two of those?
About the restaurant stuff?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's almost never used. I mean, I think about the restaurants I go to all the time, and I can't believe how little they do when customers are coming and going. They never collect information, right? You might have restaurant owners, CEOs on here, and it's a light bulb moment for most, right? So they never collect information. They never collect even an email address and a name. They don't get physical information so that they can do follow-up, run promotions, get people to come in, refer more, stimulate more activity. And they have the person sitting at their table for 1 to 2 hours at a clip on a regular basis. There couldn't be a better opportunity for them to say something like, hey, we're running this promotion. Give us your name and your best email address, and we'll give you a free bottle of wine. Or we'll give you 20% off your next meal, or we'll give you whatever. There's so much they can do to incentivize and build that list of getting out a weekly e-newsletter. When was the last time, Allison, you probably have a favorite restaurant in Texas where you go, or one or two that you go to on a regular basis? I have a couple around me in Florida where I live. And when was the last time that you received a e-newsletter or an e-offer, meaning email of some sort from a restaurant that you go to frequently?
Zero.
Goose egg, zilch, not even a text, right? Text is even easier.
Not even a text.
Nothing, no offer, nothing. So they just live and die by, if you build it, they will come. We have a storefront. We have a lot of foot traffic, and we're doing just fine. But they could be doing so much better if they figured out how to get the customer follow-up back-end piece of that business working.
Absolutely.
It's just so out of the norm for restaurant owners. It's a brick and mortar thing, and people don't think brick and mortar can use all these cool technology back-end automation tools. It's not the norm. So people just reject it, or they just don't know what we're talking about right now.
Yes. The other thing I run into is people think, well, I don't want to bother them. And you have an opinion about that too.
Yeah. Usually that's an excuse of not taking action, right? Because think about it. Think about if you're telling someone that you're going to give them regular updates about news of the restaurant, or about promotions or offers, or, free bottle of wine Tuesday nights, whatever you're running in the restaurant, for you to communicate when that's happening isn't bothering somebody, especially if you've gotten permission to market to them. You can do it. You can hit them with 2-3 emails a day. But if you're sending out a weekly newsletter or a weekly email, or even 2 a week or whatever, a text here and there, obviously you can abuse anything in life, right? You don't want to abuse it. It's use and abuse, but I'm not seeing even any use. So it's use and abuse, but there's not even any use happening. That's the thing. At least use it before you determine if it can be abused.
Yes. And you also feel that way about medical services, chiropractic, massage.
Clinics, private practice businesses, same thing. Same thing. Really very little follow-up. I have to tell you that the clinic that I go to down here, kind of like an anti-aging alternative health clinic that I go to, functional medicine, right? They're pretty good. They do a weekly email, and that weekly email usually consists of things going on at the bio station. It's called new products, update on peptides, different cosmetic therapies or hormone treatment. So they're at least doing a nice formatted weekly email. That's bare minimum to me today. Right. And they're pretty good. They have patient coordinators that make outbound calls to I get an outbound call once in a while. Hey, just checking in on you, seeing how you're doing. So I see a little bit of it at the clinic level, but I also see none of it at the clinic level as well. That's one of very few that I see doing any of that. It doesn't have to be that much. I mean, this isn't a heavy lift, but you'd be blown away. Allison, that the amount of people that come back for more, the amount of activity that stimulates is astronomical when it's consistent over time.
Yes.
It isn't a one and done thing. Hey, I'm going to send out an email for 3 weeks and see how it goes. No, it's long-term commitment to follow up, right? That's the key to anything in life. It's the key to working out. It's the key to a good diet. It's the key to a good relationship, is commitment to the process long-term. Consistency over time wins. And that's what follow-up really is. It's consistency over time so that you can win with customers. So they don't go somewhere else for your thing or for the next thing, because that's what they'll do. They'll forget about you and go somewhere else.
Yes. And I think people forget that. There are a couple of wellness anti-aging clinics in San Antonio. We have huge cosmetic practices. And, last I checked, I was a woman of a certain age, and no follow-up.
Nothing, huh?
Nothing.
Not even the appointment follow-up, which is killer.
Appointment follow-up.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Like, how do you just want to check? Here's our recommendations or whatever, right?
Yes, but that's it. And no, we finally got some people to start adopting sort of the medical record kind of EMR thing, but that is not a patient-centric opportunity. Let's talk about how you like to see follow-up from manufacturers, because I think they're kind of a different breed.
Yeah, but listen, at the end of the day, Allison, people are people, companies are companies, and people tend to buy more and be more receptive to people that they like, know, and trust.
Yes.
So you can hide behind the big manufacturing company or the restaurant or the logo for only so long. But if there's people who are out front, if there's a personality, a face in manufacturing, my first job out of college when I was 20 in New York was an outside sales rep for a manufacturing company, right? So I was a guy, this is pre-internet. I guess we're dating ourselves, right, Allison? You and I can laugh about that, right? For the young kids watching, yes, there was a time before there was the internet. It was quite a time. People were actually engaged and present in the things they were doing at the time. I miss those days, to be honest. But anyways, I was on the road. I was an outside salesperson doing face-to-face follow-up, right? So manufacturers, I have a client that comes to mind here in Florida, in the metal roofing, the metal roofing industry, which is big in South Florida due to hurricanes. And they have a team of guys on the street going to their manufacturers, going to their suppliers in person, in addition to email follow-up, because in that business, it's very much a face-to-face demonstration, parts and pieces, and they do workshops and bring people in quarterly as well to get them engaged in their supplies and in their metal. So from a manufacturing standpoint, and for other businesses as well, sometimes there's a big people component that needs to be the follow-up in addition to some of the tools we're talking about here today. So it really, for me, it comes down to, if you can do all of it, great. But in your question of manufacturers, a lot of times you're going to need to integrate people into the mix. There needs to be a little bit more manual grunt work. But that manual grunt work can always be followed up nicely with good email and some text and some voice and inside salespeople follow up. I mean, it's just a matter of laying out what that, I guess, customer or prospect journey looks like, and then figuring out what are the touch points that make sense for us. Is there an in-person touch point? Is there a telephone touch point? Is there a direct mail touch point, an email touch point? And the more the merrier, obviously use and abuse as well.
Yes. Let's talk about how you can manage your salespeople, because it can be very challenging when you lead a sales team to understand what everybody's doing. And you have a client that has had some interesting conversations about what their salespeople have and have not been doing over the last 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, accountability is huge, right? I was talking to a client down here. Actually, that same client comes to mind, and he has 3 outside salespeople around Florida, and none of them are really checking in. There's no really checks and balances. So are they coming in every Monday and sharing how many appointments they had the week before? How many new appointments, how many existing clients did they go see? How many brand new, never before clients have they go seen? Where is that reporting every week? Oh, we've never really done that. Well, then you don't really know what your sales guys are up to. There's no accountability. They know it and you know it, which is a double problem.
Yep.
Right. They know it. So now they can kind of skid and maybe take a day off or an afternoon off here and there. But if you don't see it, then you can't really fix or change or know when there's a problem or know when there needs to be something improved. So they implemented this 2 weeks ago, actually, just coming into September. This is timely. And now every Monday, the 3 guys have to report in. They have to fill out a sheet now of how many appointments to existing clients, how many new appointments to stimulate new business, and then how many purchase orders came out of that they double check and cross-reference with the inside team. And just that little act alone has people more alert, They're like, because they're being watched now. And
Yep.
now the sales managers are like, okay, we know what people are up to, and we know maybe where there's some holes. Or one thing they found was, we're not getting in front of any new people. That's a good thing to know. I'd like to know if you're getting in front of 0 new prospects. Anybody can go shake hands and be a politician to the existing buyers, but when are you going to get in front of some new buyers? Is it 3 a week? What are the benchmarks? 5 a week? Or do we have a goal of getting in front of 2 new potential manufacturing clients per week? Right. So now they're setting some goals. What happens if you don't hit those goals? It's nice to know. Wouldn't it not be nice to know if you went a month without getting in front of any new prospects? I'd love to know how ineffective my sales guy is, right? That these are what we call knowns in business. The more knowns you have with your sales process, the more efficient the business is. The more unknowns you have, the more unstable that sales force or that sales process is.
Yes, I think many people are quite afraid of sales, which is an understandable fear. I think you do not have it. I don't think Aaron has it. But there are many people.
You don't have it.
Sometimes I have it. I'm much
we
better
all do
now,
sometimes, right? Anytime, we all can get, things can get a little awkward anytime you're pitching something, right?
Yep.
But sales isn't always about pitching. That's the thing. People think it is.
Exactly. It's about offering help. And I think when you reframe, then that's a whole different conversation. But I think business owners, particularly mid-sized business owners, that 100, 200, 300, they're not necessarily in the day-to-day sales operation. And it's just like this thing that nobody understands. But if you don't understand that, then you don't have predictability in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And you need tools to connect the two together.
Right. Agreed.
Predictability,
keyword.
Predictability is key. I think, for businesses, predictability is most key. I hate predictability, except in business.
Yep. Yep.
So, tell us how you founded Pipeline Pro, because I think it's such an interesting story.
Yeah, we're a full spectrum sales and marketing CRM platform. I like to say that we're like Salesforce for the small to mid-sized business owner. Salesforce is more enterprise, right? So that's the best analogy I can give. But we founded it because we were the kind of consultants and business owners at the time that had a lot of different tech happening. So we would have funnel builders and calendar systems for the sales team and things like Infusionsoft or HubSpot, some of the more well-known CRM names. And we were always, like you said earlier, we were always kind of having to patch these together. And they worked most of the time, but there was always a lot of breakage. And when we came across the technology that we now use for Pipeline Pro, we were able to get everything all in one place, which is a huge need we filled, is that need to have everything in one ecosystem, because it creates tremendous productivity and efficiency, drives costs down, and gives the business owner the chance to build the business, not always be piecing the tech together. Because like I said in the beginning, I think sometimes tech can be like kryptonite. It's everywhere. There's too much of it and you're frozen. So that was a big pain point we noticed in the marketplace. And we brought the technology solution to that pain point and said, hey, if you can have everything in one ecosystem, how much time and energy and productivity does that free up for you to go make more sales, do more business, get in front of more people? And, that's now tens of thousands of users in 20 plus different countries later. That message has resonated. And most of our members feel that that's exactly what they've been able to solve, is getting everything in one place, shedding a lot of outside tech and subscriptions, and being as efficient as they've ever been. Having the visibility to see where everything is at all times is a big piece of what we do. Giving business owners visibility of their sales process and the tools to then go communicate with them.
But you didn't stop just with that, because you created some new tools as well. So you have leveraged things onto Pipeline Pro that help both feed into the service and improve the service. Coaching,
yes,
advertising, different services that you can bolt on.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us a little bit about how you plan those things.
Yeah, it's a good point. We run we're in the SaaS business, right? For those that don't know what that is, it's software SaaS. It's called SaaS, right? Software as a service. Software as a service, right? And in that business, normally it's very much a buy and die subscription business.
Yep.
Right. We have been in this business before. We've been in the coaching and information marketing and the live event business primarily for many decades. And we wanted to bring, I guess you could say, a hybrid business model to the SaaS space, meaning, yes, we have subscriptions. Yes, we have a lot of customers all over the world. Yes, we have a great recurring revenue model, but it's 50% of our business. The other 50% of our business is coaching, consulting, done for you services. And soon, Allison, in 2020, where are we now? 21, in 2022, soon to be live events, that's been held up only because of the pandemic, right? So we're live event guys, right? If you see some of the big SaaS companies out there like Salesforce, ClickFunnels from a funnel standpoint, they're running 1 to 2 times per year big annual conferences where they get everybody in together and they bring in guest speakers. That's the next piece for us. But we know that the diversification of having multiple divisions within the same company is a more stable business. If you're kind of a one and done business owner, one service, one subscription, one setup, one suite of services, it's a little bit unstable because God forbid something goes wrong, or God forbid the marketplace changes. You don't really have anything else to fall back on because you're only a subscription model or you're only a coaching model, right? Mm-hmm. So we've done a pretty good job because we have the experience of making sure we have what I call a balanced portfolio of services underneath the Pipeline Pro umbrella.
Yes. And you allow people to enter from any of those spaces.
Yeah. There's anybody can do whatever they want, or they can ascend to wherever they want, or they can keep things simple with our basic license that we offer. They can get on subscription. They can do coaching with us like you did at one point. They can have a service done for them. I mean, we have a lot of tentacles that drive growth in the business. They're all designed to get a business owner the help that they need. And a lot of them need help. A lot of us need help just getting things done.
Sure.
And when you have that again in one place, in one ecosystem, it just doesn't bog the business owner down. So we've done a good job of being able to provide almost anything a business owner could need from a technology standpoint within the same platform, but also from a service standpoint, right? One of the things we're getting ready to roll out here shortly is some really advanced traffic packages now next: Facebook management, Instagram management, YouTube ads management, social media management, right? Things that business owners are going to go look for anyways. Why not give it to them inside the ecosystem that they're already using to run their sales and marketing in their CRM, right?
Yes. So you leverage those things one at a time. And what I see a lot is that, clients will say, well, we do this, but they don't think about what is the next thing that they can do.
Right.
So I think it's very interesting that you've been so intentional about that and very intentional in your process. It was the software, then it was the marketing automation, then it was somebody to support the marketing automation, and you keep leveraging that on and on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. I think that requires you to block some time on a regular basis to work on the business and not in it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're right. It's a compound effect. We did a podcast, you probably listened to it last week, where we talked about that exact phrase of what's next in your business, right? Because if you're in the insurance space like you are, your health, we have a lot of advisors, health insurance, life insurance, financial planning, right? Things like that. And there's always going to be a what's next. And oftentimes the business owner doesn't have the what's next. So that customer goes and finds it somewhere else. I'm not saying you have to become a Walmart and have every single product and service available for every single type of client, but you should always be thinking about stacking that next piece of product or service onto your portfolio of products. Otherwise, you're a one and done type company, which I see a lot. You have one type of service, you have one product, you market that, and then that's it. They buy or die and they're done with that. But what if somebody didn't need that version of it, but you had a different version of it, or you had a joint venture with, I don't know, an estate planning company, for example, and you could bring that idea to that client. You want to be a resource for your client in the space that you're in. I'm not suggesting here that you go find services that have nothing to do with what you offer, right? You want to keep it congruent within your business model, right? If I'm a restaurant, I don't want to go find like an estate planning service for my restaurant customers, right? You want to keep it all congruent within the same, within the same business model and within the same industry. So that restaurant, as an example, during this pandemic, the restaurant owners who were really agile and sharp, they didn't just sit back and wait for their PPP money and wait for them to be able to open again. They were starting e-commerce businesses on the heels of their restaurant. So if they were known for wine, or if they were known for tomato sauce, or if they were known for desserts, they were bringing that online and creating stores. Mm-hmm. Some of them ended up making more money on the e-commerce side of things. Personal trainers, great example, by the way. They were locked out of gyms for months. I know personal trainers who went and tripled their income because they were able to get in front of clients in California, Florida, and Texas, not just Florida, by online classes, by one-on-one Zoom sessions. That became a trend, right? So you can see here that you're only limited by your own creativity, but you have to be thinking about what's next in the portfolio of products. Otherwise, you have kind of limited value to you're of limited value to the customer.
I know in our space, we work with CPAs, we work with property and casualty brokers so that we can, I'm not going to do property and casualty, but I do know who does a good job, right? I know good estate planners, I know good CPAs, I know, good financial advisors because I work with business owners, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a whole ecosystem that we've created, and it's very helpful to all of us in terms of making sure that our clients get taken care of. But we do track all of that. And one thing I notice is that some of us are much better at tracking activity than others, and it makes a big difference in our day-to-day lives.
Absolutely.
In terms of customer acquisition and customer retention.
Right. Agreed.
So you have a very interesting story. It might be Aaron's story about a restaurant chain in Canada that under lockdown made more money than they did when they were in business just by doing takeout only.
Yeah, that was Aaron's story. So I don't remember it, but yeah, that's another pivot example, right? Of when you can't have people inside, how do you create some sort of a new auxiliary service that allows you to create the same momentum and have the same activity that you did prior to, right? So this whole lockdown pandemic thing that went on far too long for everybody has also, for some, been a blessing in disguise because they saw a different side of their business that they never would have thought to add or implement.
Yep.
Which is Zoom and the internet and online classes and e-commerce, and all of these things were like nirvana moments for some business owners. Others didn't adopt it. They're still waiting around for doing it the other way. So it was an interesting, businesses got exposed during this time, but a lot of them, in some of them in a good way, many in not a good way. Yeah. So just how did you respond, right?
Yep. I had a client who lost her second largest client at 10 in the morning and her largest client at 11 in the morning. Her entire business changed in a day, and she's doing great, but she had to pivot a lot.
Yep.
So I think that is a huge ability that, I see a lot of people that think, well, I'm just going to do it this way. This is the way that we've always done it. It's not possible anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, you have to be willing to break things a little bit, do things a different way, add new ideas to the mix, bring new people in, steal something from a totally different industry and add it to your industry. That's, swipe and deploy technique of, hey, this lawyer is doing this cool marketing technique. Could I apply that to the insurance space or vice versa? That's entrepreneurial thinking, not business owner thinking. It's creative thinking, not in a box thinking.
Yes. And I think you have some very interesting, and I know that some of these we cannot talk about, but you have some clients who have taken email automation and marketing automation tools and really made them work well in non-traditional industries. Financial advisors, you wouldn't think that would be a big thing for, but it is. Lawyers, you wouldn't think that it would be a big thing for, but you have some very successful law firms that have just completely changed how they do business by just automating their businesses. And people are always surprised when you talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's automation. Some people think automation is going to just take someone out of the business and automate every single piece of the business. But I'm still a big fan of the balance of automation and the human touch. But I think automation can give you back a lot of time and leverage, but the businesses that balance both the best, they still make outbound phone calls. They still do live events, but they also have a good multimedia follow-up where they use email and text and maybe some voice. That balance of the two makes the most impact. So when you see lawyers doing that, usually you don't see them doing much. They kind of live and die off referrals. When you see financial advisors doing that, it's nice to see because they're using today's technology with yesterday's old school connecting tactics, right? In my book, Sales Velocity, I talk about old school versus new school, right? So the best businesses in the world blend the old school, go out there and shake hands or make the good old fashioned phone call with technology. So they actually look up to date and up to speed, and they look hip as well. And they have emails and texts and CRMs and automation tools, but they still don't forget to get out there and shake the hands and do the events and meet with people. So there's that balance of both is the most attractive, and it attracts all types of people because some respond better to in person and some respond better to not in person. And if you're only in one of the two, then you're probably only getting in front of and making an impact on a small number of people.
So I think the most important thing I've taken from our conversation today is commitment to long-term follow-up is the most important thing that you can do for your business. And I think that commitment to long-term follow-up also means that you take a little bit of time to work on your business on a regular basis, even though people get lost in the everyday.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if it's one thing a week, right? What's the one thing each week that I'm going to do to shore up my follow-up? Maybe I'm going to add one email autoresponder each week that goes out every 7 to 10 days. And I can start to automate the process and have stuff queued up for the next 5-10 weeks. Maybe it's each week I'm going to implement my sales team to make one outbound phone call to a past customer that hasn't bought within 90 days, let's say, right? Like little things, right? Little by little, it's a compound effect. They add up over time. And eventually you're like, look at all the stuff we're doing, right? Bill Belichick always said, coach of the Patriots, most successful coach of any by far ever. He said, it's all we ever did was a lot of little things. And eventually it led to a lot of big things, right? We just did a lot of little things. We were never doing big things. We were just kind of staying in our lane and little by little chipping away consistently over time. And here we are with 7 Super Bowl champions in 2 decades, right? Something like that.
Yep.
So little things like little hinges swing big doors, little things over time, not going, oh my God, I haven't done anything in years with marketing. Where do I begin? Just with one win a week and document it. One win a week, one little thing a week. If it's not you doing it, have somebody on your marketing team do it, but shore up your marketing and your follow-up a little bit by the week and look what happens after a month, 2 months, 3 months, a quarter.
I can attest to that. And I think we'll leave it there today. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. Glad I could contribute. Had some fun.
And for those of you that are listening, give us a like or a review. We love those. And you can subscribe in all your favorite places, Apple, Stitcher, Google, YouTube, if you want to watch. And we'll see you next time.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Raising the Bar is powered by Altiqe Consulting, the country's leading independent expert in healthcare cost containment. Astute employers know there's a better way to offer health insurance, and we help them achieve it.